Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die, where my goal is to give you evidence that although our bodies will disappear, we survive physical death. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the book We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Today on our show, we have Jeffrey Marks, who is a professional psychic and evidential spiritual medium. He's a paranormal researcher and an award-winning author. His 25 years of metaphysical studies, combined with more than 10 years of trying to decode, decrypt, and understand the nature of psychic phenomena, has led him to being an extraordinarily compassionate man who is out to make a difference in people's lives. And as he says, he helps foster the fire of multi-dimensional empowerment within you. Jeffrey has attended mediumship training at the world-renowned Arthur Findlay College in the United Kingdom, as well as taken courses with some of the great mediums like James Van Praagh and Lisa Williams. He's the author of The Afterlife Interviews, Volume 1 and 2, and Your Magical Soul. His website, because I know there's people dying to look, I say dying being very funny, is spiritualexploration.com. We Don't Die Radio would like to give a warm and wonderful welcome to Jeffrey Marks. Hello, Jeffrey.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. This is great.
I'm happy you're here. And just for our listener, I just spent a half hour before I pressed the record button on this show, and Jeffrey did a reading on me and very accurately saw some really pretty cool stuff and people around me, and really a fun reading. And he gave me some really great proof that my dad, my grandparents are around, and I can share more of that later. But this show is about you, Jeffrey, so I'll shut up. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You're coming to us from where? You're in the state of Washington, I believe.
Yes, state of Washington, up around the Seattle area. So that's where I hail from.
That's where you have. Is that where you're born, raised, the whole nine
Born and
yards?
raised in Washington, and yeah, pretty much. I mean, we moved up here into the Seattle area when I was 11 years old. So yeah, I'm kind of yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Oh, very good, very good. And how did you get to be where you are now? I mean, what
Well,
happened in your life that brought you here with me now?
I'd say probably the first significant plot point in this story
It's a beautiful thing.
is at age 3. When I was 3 years old, we lived in a very active, negative, haunted house, and we were only there for 8 months. But some of the things that we experienced were my sister was in the bathtub one night, and the hot water handle blew off on her and scalded her. The water just came out and scalded her. My
Yes.
brother and my mother remember seeing the rocking chair in my brother's room rock by itself. And for me, the real significant part of it for me was one night I woke up in the middle of the night, and I just happened to glance off to my shoulder, and I saw what looked like two people were walking through my room, and I was kind of like, well, I don't know what's going on here. And they were probably about maybe 3 feet from my bed, and they crossed by my bed. Excuse me, I got a thing in my throat here.
Sure, no problem.
And they realized I was watching, because one of them turned and he looked me right in the eyes, and he screamed at me and ran towards me. And so quite literally for 13 years, I slept with the covers over my head because I was terrified of
Yeah.
something attacking me. Like I said, we only lived in that house for 8 months, but it didn't matter where we lived. We moved on average every 3 years when I was a kid until we moved up here. And at every house, I would put my quote-unquote feelers out because I wanted to know, is there something here that's going to attack me? Fortunately, nothing did, although we did move into another house that had spirits, but they were not bad or evil.
How scary for a young man.
Yeah,
Oh,
um, yeah, absolutely terrifying. And then jump ahead to my teenage years, and another round came about. As a teenager, I had finally, in one way or the other, managed to start sleeping without my head under the covers.
mm-hmm.
The way I dealt with my teenage pressure, we all have that, is I would listen to music. And so I would put headphones on and it would relax me. Well, unbeknownst to me at the time, I was putting myself in a really deep meditative state. And one night the cassette tape, so I'm dating myself here, the
Mm-hmm.
cassette tape ended and I had to flip it over. So I opened my eyes and I saw 7 people standing around my bed and freaked me out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the old haunted house thing again."
All right.
So covers over the head for a week. Well, at the end of that week, I was kind of like, "Well, now wait a minute. One of two things has happened here. Either I completely imagined it and I'm just, or there were people there, and if they wanted to scare me, they've had a whole week to do it, whether I had my head under the covers or not." So what I did is I did a little experiment, and I put myself through that whole scenario again. I got myself down into that really deep state. Took me a little longer. I had to get past those anxious nerves. But I got back down there, and when I opened my eyes, there they were again. And I tensed up, but I knew something was going on here. And that's when one of them put their hand on my wrist, and it felt like I had put my finger in a light socket. And in my head, he said, "Don't be afraid. We're not here to hurt you." So this was the introduction to what you'll hear mediums talk about as spirit guides and this sort of thing.
How old were you when this happened?
I was about 15 years old.
Okay.
So for about a year and a half on a nightly basis, I would communicate with them. But then, life takes over and you got to go out and get the job and the white picket fence and all that.
Oh,
So,
sure.
all that kind of just went by the wayside. But right around the turn of the millennium, it just seemed like, I was really dissatisfied with, it seemed like everything I was trying to do to get ahead in life and job and everything like this just wasn't working. And so I threw my arms up in the air and I says, "Okay, universe or spirit guides, whatever the heck you are, you got to give me some direction here." And that's when my mom calls me up and she says, "Hey, turn on Sci-Fi Channel. What do you think of that?" And so I turned on watch and I was kind of like, "You got to be kidding me. Are you trying to tell me I'm going to go do something like this?" And the answer I got was, "Yes, you are."
Wow.
And so that's kind of where it started. And here I am now. In
Well,
2006, just real quick, 2006, I joined the Washington State Ghost Society.
okay.
Um, and I went in not as a medium because I wanted to actually study ghosts and haunted locations with the gear because I wanted to scientifically study it. Because that's the other part of me too, is I'm very much into the scientific study of consciousness to better understand what the possibilities are with all of us. But unfortunately, at the time, the Ghost Society was like, "Well, you do have these skills, and we are short on mediums. Would you mind kind of doing double duty?"
All right.
And so, yes, I did do that. And with the Ghost Society, we don't go out and hunt spirits like you see on television,
Mm-hmm.
where it's all ghost hunting. We don't do that. We used to. We've evolved since then. When we go into a location, if we are able to validate that there is a spirit present, we will actually engage the spirit with communication from the point of view or angle of, "Okay, what can you tell us about the nature of your consciousness, the greater consciousness, and how are you able to do the activities that you do? How do you get your voice on the recorder for EVPs? How do you move objects?" These sort of things. So this is our quest these days, where we're asking some of these really heavy questions when it comes to communicating with spirits.
Do you have some answers from that?
Actually, yes, we do. It depends on where you want to go with the questions,
Well,
though.
yeah, I'm not really sure where I want to go, but you,
Let me tell you this. One of the
yeah.
things that they are adamant about, and then we have
Mhm.
several EVPs on, is all time is simultaneous. It is nonlinear, and that we live in a universe of probabilities. And it's really the power of our mind and our consciousness that creates reality, even for them. And we have the ability to more or less, just using the mind alone, be able to go into these other realms and other realities and get communication back from them, because they are willing to talk. They are willing to try to make an effort to get through. And this is what's really good about the Ghost Society, is that, yes, we use mediums, but mediums are just a tool. They're not confirmation or validation. What is really good about it is if we can get EVPs, which is the electronic voice phenomenon, if we can get the voice of the spirit on the recorder to also support and validate what the medium is getting, now that's really the nice, that's it. That's the stuff right
Yeah,
there.
can you give us an example when that happened? Assuming it has for you.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stories are
Stuff
good.
where,
And I know you're a medium and doing a lot of speaking, but I find more and more, the more that I do, like the stories really seal the deal when we can imagine something that's happening and you tell us.
yeah,
So
sure.
hit it,
One that,
my
that
friend.
comes to mind right away is we were investigating uh, a ferry boat. I think it's a ferry. It's a boat. Anyway, it's a travel boat.
Hmm.
And we had a spirit of a captain communicating with us through a K2 meter. So a K2 meter has lights that will light up in a certain set of colors.
Right.
And we were able, just using the K2 meter alone in combination with mediumship and the voice recorder, get his name and that he actually had 2 stints as captain on board that vessel. And the thing about the Ghost Society is they don't tell the mediums any history or anything about the location because obviously we can be tainted otherwise.
Right. Sure.
And so here we do. We get Henry as the name. On the audio recorder, we actually get his voice saying yes. And then for me as the medium, I was getting that he had been captain twice on that boat. Well, lo and behold, after we're done with the investigation, we got historical records of that ship, and it listed all the captains, and there he was. There was Henry, I forget his last name, but he had 2 stints on board that vessel as a captain.
That is so cool. That is cool. Cool. I want to jump back to something though. I'm going to be
Sure.
all over the place because you're somebody different than me, clearly, in different interests. But you're
Well, I don't know. We're all same. We all have talents. We're all the
no, I
same.
don't mean like that. But I mean you've researched different things. Like I've dabbled in the
Mm-hmm.
EVPs and medium stuff. But like something I circled on my piece of paper was haunted house. Now, do people have to be afraid? Or what would they do? I mean, because now on this show we always talk about, I don't want to say the good stuff, but
Right.
there's not too much of ghosts haunting houses. And if people have had that experience, are they doomed? Um,
Absolutely not. In fact, our research has pretty much indicated that about 99% of the hauntings out there are not meant to be evil, mean, scary, or doomed in any way. Um, and those would be the ones that we can actually confirm spirits are there because there are a lot of haunting-like activity that goes on out there that is not related to spirits at all. It's either natural phenomena or the people themselves are haunted. That's an interesting one
what do you
because
what do you
people,
mean?
in fact, they say, I haven't really done the research on this to know what the numbers are,
Uh-huh.
but they say that quite a bit of the poltergeist activity actually comes from the people themselves that are experiencing it. In other words, they've suppressed their emotions and this sort of thing, and you can't do that well. Your consciousness will always find a way to express itself, and sometimes for these people, depending on how they suppress their emotions and all this stuff, it can come out as perceived haunting-like activity.
Wow.
Yeah, we've got one of our mediums actually kind of does this, depending on her state of consciousness and things going on in her life. She'll turn off lights walking into a room or have computers break down, this sort of thing. And some people can say, well, that's a spirit, but she knows it's not. It's just the nature of her consciousness and what she's going through.
We're pretty powerful, and I'm of the belief that everything we can do, I call it in heaven, we can do here on earth. It might just take a little longer. We think it does, but that our thoughts and our how we're being and our energy really does create our reality. So I think if there's a lot of negativity,
That's
right?
right. Right. And that just reminded me of something. I'm sure you know this, and probably a lot of your listeners have this experience of divine parking.
Oh, talk
You know,
about that. We haven't talked
yeah.
about that on the
What
show.
what what that really what I love about divine parking is it actually does show the nature of your multidimensional consciousness. Because if you think about it, when you make that intention of divine parking, you can do it like 5 minutes away from the parking lot, make that intention and get that spot. But what you don't realize is everything had to come into place and be orchestrated even before you made that intention. Because think about the stoplights that you may have had to stop at before you made that intention, the
Right.
pedestrians you had to wait for, as well as the person who currently occupies the parking spot in the store needing to get through the line, get out into their car, and get out of the parking lot for you to get that space. What that really means is your thought has so much power, that intention to get that parking spot has so much power that it actually goes backward in time to make those particular things fall into place perfectly so you can get into that spot.
Jeffrey, that stuff is mind-blowing.
That's what I love about this stuff.
See,
I used to play games with myself at work doing that sort of stuff.
that's one of the things I like about you is that you're so interested in stuff, and it's not like you've done the work. And in a little while I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the Arthur, or a little bit about the Arthur Findlay College, because I know that's where, if one wants to be the best of the best medium, like that's where you go. And
That is definitely where
that's
you
the
go.
real deal, and you're really tested, and you really have to perform, and you've got to be the real deal to graduate from there. But the whole thought of time being simultaneous, I took a course in remote viewing, and even looking at pictures, you could tell what happened in the past. I mean, there's just so
Yes.
much weird stuff in that whole thing, and it's hard for the mind to get around how, like, that's possible.
Well, it's only hard because I think we've been ingrained or conditioned to think that it's that way. I think if we had been born with the notion right out the gate that our thoughts went in all directions, it would be different. I
Hmm.
think it could be different.
Yeah, and I think, would it be correct in saying that when you have a medium experience, or and maybe you could talk too about mediums being psychics, but psychics not necessarily being mediums. But
Correct.
when you tune into that place, I mean, you can access the past, present, future, and I'm guessing that's because all time is simultaneous, like you're actually going in to that space. Does that make sense?
That would make sense if you were going in on a psychic level, if you were connecting with your client. When it's coming from spirit, yes, they already exist in that no time, no space. But as a medium, your focus is in communication with that spirit. So if there's like past,
Okay.
present, and future information coming through, at least for me, I can only speak for me on this. For me, it's coming from the spirit, and I'm not necessarily hooked into a psychic perception with the client because that's not where my focus is at that moment.
Right. And the psychic connection is a whole different context of why you'd be working with that person, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, a psychic will use the same faculties in terms of receiving information, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, but their source for that information is different from the medium.
Okay. I think I gotcha.
Yeah, the source for a psychic is going to be the client themselves and their aura and their energy. Whereas for the medium,
Oh,
the client's energy does play a part in setting up the environment for the communication, but the medium themselves is not focused on connecting with the client. They are focused on connecting with those in the spirit world, which is a different vibration.
yeah, that sounds like a whole different
Yeah,
ball game right there. And a little bit more about you being a medium, because I love, first of all, I absolutely love that you did a reading for me, and to our listener right now, I may, if I'm brave enough, play a few clippets at the end, if that's okay with you, Jeffrey, just to just validate like how awesome you are. Uh, but I mean, it really takes something to go into, want to be a medium, want to be the best of the best, and what's just coming from your head, and what's real uh,
that's
stuff coming
hard.
from
I
the other
mean,
side. So tell
yeah.
a little bit about why you picked the Arthur Findlay School, and what kind of an experience that was.
Uh, because the Arthur, okay, I think first off is in England, they've studied this since the late 1800s, and in over there in England, spiritualism is its own religion, and so they've really worked at mastering it. Over here in the U.S., it's still not, it's definitely not in the same ballpark or framework as it is over there in England,
Oh,
and so that's why the Arthur Findlay College is really the place to go to really learn this. There is no real graduate program, but what it is they have several different courses throughout the year, and each course is a week long. But the thing is they work you from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
hmm.
I mean, yeah, there's breaks and stuff in there, but I mean, when you are there that whole day, you are being worked. It's and by the end of that week, you are so happy it was only a week. Because when I when I first went, I did 2 courses,
Hmm.
and I am just absolutely amazed I made it through that second course because halfway through that second week, I was still processing all the information I had learned from the week before. It was kind of
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can handle much more. I'm going to implode.
Right.
But truly, though, if you want to understand and learn how mediumship works and to really get those gears moving inside you, that's really where you need to go.
Wow. And I'm somebody who went from totally closed and totally skeptic to this and actually having an experience of being able to do some very accurate medium readings that's what woke me up that this is real. But there's so many people, Jeffrey, that have lost a loved one and are just praying for this to be real. And I know out there are some mediums that have done kind of a half-assed job, if I can say that, of doing readings. And like when you just did my reading, it's like, yes, I understand, no, I don't, or maybe I need some more information. You definitely didn't want me to feed you anything. And
Correct.
yeah, I just had a friend recently who didn't have that kind of a reading, and she was just left so disappointed and heartbroken. So I think there's a skeptical part in all of our minds, like, is this real?
Well, the other thing too is every reading is different, and so the conditions. I mean, to me, in my mind, it's amazing we get anything at all, considering the amount of work that has to go into it. Because it's the medium, it's the sitter, and it's those in spirit, and the combination of all three of those coming together, creating a perfect storm in order for that communication to go through. And sometimes that doesn't happen. I mean, I've had readings where I've got nothing, or the information honestly doesn't make any sense, and so it just falls apart. It's unfortunately it is the nature of the beast, because you are dealing with energy and you're dealing with mind, and sometimes not all of that stuff makes it perfectly into the game at the time that you're wanting it to.
Right, right. Like when we talked, I didn't bring this up, but my grandmother's deceased, and it's like, Grammy, please come through, please come through. Now, I loved what you said about my grandfather and my dad, and that was all right on. I'm like, but where's Grammy? But it's just like, let it go, let it go.
Yeah, because there are some over there, and there are some spirits that are they like to have the floor. They're not going to give it up to other people. The other
Oh,
reason too is and then I'm not saying this is your grandmother, but there are some spirits that in life they allowed other people to take the podium before them and speak before them, and they're that way in spirit as well. I've had a few readings where somebody was hoping to hear from so and so, and it took like nearly the whole reading until the very end before that person to come forward, only to realize that was who they were in life anyway. They weren't one to speak up right away. They decided to wait and hold off until the end.
wow. Do we maintain our same personalities when we?
Yes, we do, but we don't always necessarily maintain um, certain behaviors.
I want the good stuff to stay and the bad stuff to go away.
Well, we'd all like that, wouldn't we?
Yes.
No, because really the way we are, our behaviors and everything are all related to a framework of how we think in our mind,
Hmm.
and that doesn't change when we pass away. We still carry that forward. Now it's the life review when you get to review your life and you see
Hmm.
your actions, and not only that, you get to feel how you made other people feel. That definitely has an impact on your consciousness, and I think it at least will highlight those ideas, beliefs, and behaviors that you really do want to change. But like anything, there's going to be work in order to do that. Your mind's just not something going to switch off and go another direction. At least not in my opinion. It might for some, but I know for me, when I see certain behaviors, thoughts, or ideas that I don't like in my life review, I'm probably going to have to work to change them, and they're not just going to instantly flop over to where I want it to go.
Yeah, I don't know what the spirits have told you about. Do you call life or heaven or the hereafter? But it does seem like there's a bit of responsibility that for our actions, and not so much as a make wrong, but or punishment, but just like
No,
we have to deal with who we are and what we've done and learn from
that's
it.
exactly it. Yeah, we are totally responsible for our actions.
Any idea of what do you call it? Heaven? Do you call it hereafter? You call it death? You call it transitioning?
Um,
What do you, what's your lingo?
I call it, my lingo would be the other side, the afterlife, the hereafter.
Oh, good, good, good.
I generally don't use heaven because there's usually a religious
Oh,
connotation to that,
yep.
and I just don't go there.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Any insights as what that's like? Or is it different for everybody with the
Well,
hereafters?
actually, what they tell us is the actual environment of the other side um, is a type of landscape, not very much different from here, that apparently the architecture itself was put in place a long time ago by what they consider the higher ups, which we can call archangels or whatever you want. However, each individual spirit gets to fine-tune the details. For instance, you can have two people walking on a shoreline. They're standing on the same shoreline. But depending on the individual nature of the spirit, one person can see that shoreline during the daytime in nice sunny 70-degree weather, while the other one could be walking that same shoreline and it's night with the stars out overhead. It really is more or less a mental realm, which even we are here in a mental realm. It's just very slow. Over there, it's not as slow, and they're able to fine-tune their reality based on their thoughts.
That's cool because that really tells me we can do it here.
Yeah,
And
well, I think we do it here all the time. It's just that it's a very slow, dense, vibrational energy, and we oftentimes get in our own way because we change our mind every 3 seconds.
yes, yes, we do. What was it like when you first started doing medium readings for people?
um,
What was the impact on you of being like if somebody's lost a loved one or somebody was in search of, and you could bridge that gap by what you saw? I mean, you see things, you hear things, all of the above. What's
I
your
primarily see and feel, although I've been
okay?
working on the hearing. That's something I really would like to develop more of.
Okay.
But primarily it's feeling and seeing. My first reaction was, because to me the whole mediumship thing is a dual aspect for me. Um, what the first part obviously is making that connection for other people and letting them know that their loved one has survived. But the other aspect of it for me is, again, what does this say about the nature of consciousness in itself? Not only for our loved ones who have passed, but also for us, because I hope that um, a course of a reading can inspire my sitter to the possibilities of their own eternal nature and their own multidimensional self. And as I'm going through the reading, that's what it does for me. I mean, when I get some of those really obscure hits, kind of like, I don't know, a big hot air balloon, for instance.
Yeah. Yes,
when,
as
when
he's
stuff like that comes through, I mean that for me continues to really inspire me to the possibilities of the multidimensional nature of my own consciousness.
I love that multi-dimensional.
Yeah, because we are beyond time and space. We actually orchestrate it, and sometimes we lose sight of that. So this work that I do is really geared for me. That's really what I try to gear it towards. Because I think we are all divine, inspirational gods and goddesses.
Why do you think we all have, whether you call it the ego or the inner critic or the little voice in your head, mine goes to there's no way, when somebody talks and I have to set it aside and really listen. And we are skeptical in nature, and we are very often uh, our worst enemy. Like we say to things inside to ourselves that we would never tell another person. Like we would never let anybody treat us like we treat us.
I know.
How does that play into us being human? Like what's that about?
Well,
And can we do anything about it? And
I don't think there's one simple answer, but I
okay,
do think a good portion of it hinges very heavily on our childhood upbringing.
okay,
Because I think we are told or taught as children not to be selfish, Start caring more about others. So oftentimes our upbringing deals with, when it comes to discipline, kind of knocking ourselves down a bit. And then on top of that, we have a societal belief system that stems from religion that states you are born less than perfect, you are born bad in God's eyes,
Right.
and you foist that on a society and a civilization for thousands of years, you're going to have a psychological structure which perpetuates that, which will come out in how you think about yourself and your behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, let me toy with you for this.
Sure.
What if we had been told for thousands of years that we were the loving reflection of a source creator and could do everything good, positive, as well as do some things bad and wrong as well, but that we were really true lovers of life? How do you think society and humanity would have turned out with that as a theme for thousands of years?
Well, I have my own thoughts about it. Like we need to have the bad to experience the good, and we need to like what would be the point of life if we, and this is just me talking,
Sure.
like if it's all good all the time, if we knew exactly who we were every minute,
Correct.
there would be no challenge in it. There would be no growth. There'd be no
I agree
evolution of
with
the
you there.
soul. Um,
But I think if we are taught that we are wrong more times than we are right, we start anticipating that we're going to be wrong, and that's where I think the fall has really gotten into our consciousness.
yeah, I went to the movies the other day, and in my reading, you saw, or someone told you that I was at the movies. Um, but the new movie's out, Pitch Perfect, about the girls singing, and
Yes,
I had taken a 15-year-old girl to see it, and with my aunt, and I look, and I'm like the oldest person in the room, right, being 49, but I was in a room with all these teenage girls, and in my teenage years, my heart was broken by my boyfriend, who was the first love of my life. I mean, all kinds of bad stuff happened, and when I look within myself, and I made some really severe judgments about myself, how bad I was, how unlovable I was, stuff that's like stuck with me. I mean, when we
yes,
when we have those experiences young, they stick with us. And I'm just looking at these young girls and thinking, gosh, that was the age of Sandra that like really sentenced me to being unlovable or not good enough. And I just like I got so much kind of peace and clarity, and like I could let it go. Just like it's just really interesting to see that age person and realize, that we do this.
yes.
But it still occurs to me like I was the same me then as I am now, but not true. Not
Not
true.
true.
Not
Not true.
true. Let me ask
No.
you, Jeffrey, can we all be mediums? Can we all, and maybe not like professional mediums, but can do we need a medium to connect with our loved ones in the hereafter, or is there things we can do to connect with them?
I think everybody has the capacity and the ability, because I know some mediums who didn't actually have any pre-existing conditions, shall we say. They just had an interest, and so they started studying and they developed. Now, for you wanting to do mediumship to connect with your own loved ones, I would kind of caution against that, because you already know your loved ones. And so it's very hard to be objective with the information as it's coming through. That's at that point you would need to go consult another medium to have them connect with your relatives, so you can get out of, that way you don't have to worry about, is this my imagination or not? Because there is a very fine line in knowing that difference at times. Is this your own mind, or is this something from spirit? Because the information is not always real blunt and forceful. Sometimes it's just very soft, very, just very, very, very soft, and kind of not quite there. And so you do kind of hem and haw, is this something from spirit or something from my imagination?
Mm.
Because not every spirit that comes through knows how to work with a medium. I mean, that's the other thing too. There is a knowledge base and a learning curve even for them.
Oh, talk more about that. I've not heard that before. I,
Yeah, that's one of the things that can actually sometimes make a reading difficult, is depending, and I honestly don't understand the entire dynamics of it, because with all time being simultaneous, that really kind of throws a monkey wrench in things.
right.
But they do tell us that, and I've experienced this, where you do a reading for somebody and say their father comes through. This is actually correct. This is one of my sitters, and she comes back multiple times. Her father comes through. That father gets more and more adept at communicating every time she appears, and not just with me. She'll go visit other mediums, and the father will come through, and you could see how much he's progressed in being able to communicate through a medium. Whereas there are some who, and this usually happens with relatives who, while they were here on Earth, this would have been seen like as, this is of the devil, or they
Mm-hmm.
just did not believe in it. When they have an opportunity to reach back through using a medium to a relative, because they avoided it in life and everything, it's going to be a little bit tougher for the school ahead of time. Uh, Again, how do you do ahead of time when all time is simultaneous? But you follow me there.
Right?
They need to get that education. Otherwise, we understand a little bit of how the communication works from their side. Uh, they have to be able to enter the light of the medium and be able to work with their frequencies. And if you've never done that before, you're going to have a little bit of a harder time than somebody who has some experience with that.
That's so wild because it doesn't make any sense, but I can get it. Like it's just
No,
like,
it's
oh yeah, you
bizarre.
just have to figure out the correct energy frequency to enter into whatever. But that does shed some light because I know I've talked to people that really heartbroken that someone's passed away and they haven't been in contact. Even one of my race car driver guys, because I cook for the race car teams, has said that his dad's been gone 2 years and there's not been one sign, and he really wants to believe, but there hasn't been anything, and I didn't know what to say to him about that. And
Yeah, the best we can say is it's just not the right time for
yeah,
whatever reason. We don't always know the reason why, um, but what we do know is that there really is no such thing as coincidence. And so if things have not happened the way we want, there is a reason for it, and we may not always understand it at the time, but we do on some level need to accept it,
wow.
even though we want to rail against it.
Well, yeah, I want my life to be a certain way and I want certain things to happen, and I know I've been very hard on myself that I haven't done something, or I thought I missed going somewhere and I'm showed up over here, and then something miraculous will happen, or I'll have some kind of really strange interaction with somebody that it's like, you know what? I had to be right here. So,
Yeah.
you know, I want my life to go the way Sandra wants it to go, but that's not meant to. What do you think is our purpose being here on Earth in these physical bodies if we are these multi-dimensional beings?
I believe our purpose is to be able to experience and express and learn all the possibilities inherent within our multidimensional consciousness.
Man, it's good stuff. You're a pretty cool guy.
It gets deep, but you know that's one of the questions that, as a psychic and a medium, that I prefer not to answer if I'm in a sitting. Because
Oh
some people
yeah.
say, "Well, what's my purpose in life?" And it's kind of like, "Oh my gosh, well that can go in any direction. Are you talking about your job, your children, your finance? What are you talking about? Because it can go in so many different directions because there are so many different things that we work on in our consciousness that it's just not necessarily one distinct point of narrow-mindedness that we're working in.
Yeah, that's a mighty big question. What excites you now? Because I know you enjoy doing medium readings, right? And if my listeners want to contact you, is that something they can do? First of
Yes,
all.
they can. What I'm really loving these days is uh, doing groups,
Okay.
doing the group gallery and stuff. I really enjoy working with audiences in that way. On the research side of things, I'm still working with the Washington State Ghost Society, and we're coming up with all these new, deep and interesting questions about more or less trying to understand the nature of a particular spirit's journey and what we're calling exit points. And exit points are referring to why did they choose to pass out of the body in this way or at this time? Because we're discovering that even our death in some way we consciously create. Maybe not consciously aware create it, but in some level, in somewhere in our consciousness, we make that choice to go in that way.
Isn't that interesting?
Because I had a friend, a close friend, pass away a few years ago.
Hmm.
She passed away the day after Christmas, and me and another medium met with the family to connect. And since then, she's connected with other mediums. And what has come through is very interesting in that she chose that day and that time to leave because she also understood that had she stayed, her other opportunity to exit later on would have been much more difficult health-related wise. So she decided to take an early exit that was also available.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I saw my dad suffer something terrible, and it's kind
Yeah.
of hard to grasp that, like, he chose that, you know?
Yes, it is very hard to grasp. But when you look at the bigger picture and realize that we don't die,
That's
then
right. Yeah.
that's right. Then what are we really dealing with here? Well, we're dealing with not necessarily an illusion, but a very elaborate passion play. And when it's over, we will take what we've learned, what we experienced, and what we've expressed with us into new avenues of experience and expression.
Do we come back as reincarnation? Something to
Within a
that?
simultaneous framework, we have simultaneous selves that when you put it through the framework of time or the fabric of time, it looks like a this before that, but on the other side, they're all there simultaneously.
Well, that's kind of mind blowing what you just said. Let me process that. I think
Yes.
I know what you mean.
So
So,
you can see, let's say you have past life recollection of being in ancient Egypt.
okay,
Okay. From right now, because we are filtering our consciousness and our experience through the fabric of time, obviously the Egyptian one looks like it comes before this current one.
right.
However, when you step outside of the body and step outside of time, on the other side, you could be conversing with you as an Egyptian because is still an independent individual life expression and experience that continues to go on the other side, just like you. It's like fingers on a hand. This is how I typically describe it to people.
Okay,
It's fingers on a hand. When you look at your hand, you got 5 fingers.
right.
That would be how you are in simultaneous time. But when you put the hand through the fabric of time, you get one finger before the other.
Wow, that's a big concept to grasp.
Yes, and you do in some ways because you're all connected, just like a hand, affect one another psychically, emotionally. You'll find that similar. Anybody who does any reincarnation research will discover that there are similar parallels that happen between these reincarnational selves because they're all really simultaneous and they're all interconnected and essentially are one through the body of a greater oversoul.
I heard a great quote that was, your lifetime is but a thread in the fabric of your soul.
Yes.
And that,
Yeah, I
like,
totally believe that.
it just hit me like it's just one tiny little piece and everything's interwoven and there's just so much more. Oh my.
Yeah.
I love talking to you. What am I forgetting to ask you being
Well,
a
just
host?
just a side note,
Okay.
because in my afterlife interviews books, that is one of the questions. A couple of questions I get into is the reincarnation one. And what was interesting was some of the spirits over there that I was connecting with told me they did not want to talk to their other selves because they actually kind of blamed them for some of the issues that they had to deal with in their life here this time around because they initiated it in their mind, quote unquote, back then, even though it's all simultaneous. I did have other spirits say, well, if you really wanted to know how close a family could be, get to know your simultaneous selves. So it's very interesting. It's fascinating to me. The whole aspect of the no time, no space is one of the things that really gets my mind going.
Talk about your books for a bit. You just mentioned the afterlife interviews. You have two
Yeah,
volumes. What's that about? It sounds like you've interviewed people in the afterlife. Is
that's
that
exactly
correct?
what I did. That's exactly what I did. When I'm with the Washington State Ghost Society, we do EVP sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got started, I asked a list of 22 questions at every investigation I went on, and the questions pertain to what is life like as a spirit and the hopes that I would get an EVP. Well, I was getting EVPs on these questions. And then I had this idea of, well, now, wait a minute. I'm a medium. Why don't I interview on a mediumistic level people's loved ones on the other side to find out what is like life like over there. So over a course of a year and a half, I had 14 different people come in, and I would spend probably about 20 minutes doing an initial upfront reading to make sure that I was connected with their loved ones at a
Mm-hmm.
good frequency. And then I had my sitter ask each one of these 52 questions, and I would bring back the information from their loved ones. I recorded all of these sessions, and I did get EVPs in quite a few of them, and put all the answers out in this big, humongous Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I had 14 different viewpoints from those in spirit on 52 different questions. And so the Afterlife Interviews Volumes 1 and 2 details what those responses were to those 52 questions. So it starts with the dying process all the way up through the life review, the retaining of the individual identity, and then what is the actual environment like over there? Do they have days, nights, seasons? Do they actually have occupations? And what do they really think about organized religion and God? I asked as all the things that I could possibly think of.
Wow.
And I made sure that I had a wide range of backgrounds. So I made sure that I had people over there in the spirit world that were Christian,
Uh-huh.
Buddhist, Muslim, atheist, agnostic. I think the only group that I did not get represented in those 14 interviews was Hinduism.
Very
But
interesting.
I think every other one I pretty much got.
Did you have any surprising answers to your questions? Oh, you
Um,
probably had a lot of them, but I mean, any
yeah,
that
it's all
stand,
one big surprise. The gosh, there are so many of them.
I'm sure.
The most surprising one to me was I asked a question about religious figures. Were there religious figures over there from the Bible, and can you communicate with them? And the answer I got was yes, there are some, but then there aren't some over there. Some of them were, more or less conglomerations of things that were told, handed down orally, and so they weren't really connected to a real person. But those that were there were seen as pretty much, it's kind of like when you see a superstar, like a movie star, walking on the street and you
Mm-hmm.
go up and approach them and you discover, oh my gosh, you're just a normal person. That's what came through. So they would go meet
Oh,
these religious figures and suddenly realize, oh, they're just a normal person. And in fact, they too are just that one religious figure is just one self connected to other simultaneous selves just like everybody else. And so there's every possibility that any one of us, you or I or any one of your listeners, may actually be a really high quality guru type person like a biblical figure in some other time.
wow. And maybe even in this, because we don't know what our
And
future is in this
that's
time
correct.
around.
We don't know. But we're all connected. We all come from the same source. And so we all have the same possibilities available to us. Whether or not we choose to exercise them and work with them is another thing, but all the possibilities are there.
Oh, wow. And your other book, did that come before the Afterlife
The other one
Interviews?
came before, yeah. The first book, Your Magical Soul, How Science and Psychic Phenomena Paint a Different Picture of the Self and Reality. That one, not so much about mediumship. It's more of a, they have been studying psychic phenomena really since the 1800s, but it started back in the 1970s with the Stanford Research Institute and the remote viewers, where they really started doing some scientific exploration in what is happening with psychic phenomena and this sort of thing. And so the book kind of takes a wide look, a broad view of some of the research that was done and demonstrates that indeed we, you and I and everybody else, um, are beyond time and space. We do orchestrate it, we do create it, and we have these abilities. We are uh, powerful and eternal and multidimensional.
Yeah, that's the beauty of all of this, and it's one of the reasons I love doing this show and talking to people because it's like I get if we don't die and doing electronic voice phenomena, recording voices on recorders, and things like remote viewing, seeing into time and space, and and so many of these things. If that's possible, it's like what else is possible, and who
Yeah,
are we really? And a lot of people in my past, just would think the world of this kind of conversation is airy fairy new age stuff, but it really is, I think, getting closer and closer um, to the science world catching on. And I think even like you had said in England, it already they're light years ahead of us. Just the fact that when we talk about quantum physics
Yes.
and energy and all this, like this stuff is very real, and it's not hocus pocus. It's not, it's the real deal.
Yeah, no, when we approach it objectively and still retain some skepticism because you
Hmm.
don't want to just willy-nilly just buy into everything.
No.
But when you approach it, I think honestly and objectively and really look at it. I mean, here's something that most people don't know. There's actually, I believe it's 6 times more evidence for the reality of ESP than aspirin being good for the heart.
Oh, I love that.
That was detailed in one of Dean Radin's books, and he's a scientist that works for the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I believe it's 6 times. It's either 6 or 10, but it's significantly way more data to demonstrate the authenticity of the ESP than aspirin being good for the heart.
Gosh. And it's so amazing that it's so easy. And I live in one of those skeptical brains to say, there's no proof of this. There's no proof of near death experiences. There's no proof. Nobody can prove to me ESP is real. But, if you keep saying that long enough and you don't do the research, well, of
That's
course
right.
that's what you're going to believe.
And they know from quantum physics work in there that the attitude of the researcher will have a definite impact on the results of the experiment,
Oh, that's amazing.
positive and negative. If they are
Right?
going in there with a negative outset, it will impact the results of those experiments.
That's amazing stuff. How can we learn more? You're somebody who says you help the foster the fire of multidimensional empowerment within you. So, we've just spoken about an hour now, but it's like I want to know more. How can what where should we go? What should we do? I mean, I know for people in or that want to travel in your area, you offer a mediumship course, right? You got Medium
Yes,
101. Um,
Mediumship 101.
I know you do speaking and you do the group readings, but and I really, if you're a listener right now and you want a good medium reading, he's the real deal. He
Well,
really
thank you.
is. Yeah,
I
I
can't
really.
guarantee anything because
No,
every
you
reading's
can't.
different,
But
but
but you're sincere and really authentic
I do.
about that.
I have a I have an emotional vested interest in making sure that connection happens.
Yeah, so
So
that's awesome. I mean, you
yeah,
really are the real deal, and you are
thank you.
passionate about making a difference. But as far as other things that you learn, obviously we can read your books, right? And do you list? I'm sure everything's on your website, which is spiritualexploration.com, right?
Right.
And any other tools you want to recommend or share? Or,
Um,
or
if people are interested in kind of experiencing their multidimensional selves,
oh, that sounds so
I'd
cool.
recommend what's that?
That just sounds cool. Yeah.
I recommend doing things like intention work, doing things like divine parking. One of the things I used to do at work is every day I go up to City Hall in my city where I work, and it's a three door elevator. So when you walk in the lobby, you have three elevator doors to choose from.
Hmm.
And what I would do is before I leave my office to go travel to up to City Hall, which is about a mile and a half, 2 miles away, I would tune myself in such a way as to be able to predict which door was going to open, which one of those elevator doors was going to open. And I actually cataloged for about 2 weeks my hits and misses. And I was on about 80% at the time. And that now what's very interesting is how does that relate to multidimensionality? It's sort of similar with the divine parking is you got to be able to take into account all the stoplights, pedestrians, and everything else that are going to get in your way before you even get to that platform in front of those elevators, push that elevator button, and then know what door is going to open up.
Oh, that's awesome. I've even played around in the world of remote viewing. I took a course with Russell Targ. I think I told you about that
Yes.
earlier. But it's sometimes when I'm having a bad day and I feel like I'm really locked into uh, this human reality really being real,
Yeah.
and I take myself oh so significantly, I can have the intention of knowing what's on like a page of a magazine, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I let my mind just wander. And of course, I've got the negative mind that's going, you can't do this. This isn't real. And I set that aside and I just, like, well, what if it is? What if it is? And then I take out a notepad and I start scribbling down images that come to my mind or things that I see. And then I'll go pick up a random magazine, right?
Yes.
And then I'll open it to a random page and there will be something, or very oftentimes several of the things that just came to my mind, or
Yeah.
aspects of those things, like I could see stripes and there could be something that's got stripes in it, things like that. But it is so wild because it's not only like I hadn't made those choices yet of what page I'm going to open to, even what
Right.
magazine I'm going to open to. And
Yeah.
so in that split second, it's so empowering that it's like, oh yeah, Sandra, don't take
Yeah.
yourself so seriously. There's more to the picture here, you know?
Yeah. All we really need to do is just be curious enough to experiment. And that's it. I mean, that's really all it requires is just be
Yeah.
curious enough to experiment and be. But again, kind of like you say, you do have to get past that doubting mind and that skeptical mind. I mean, even for me as a medium, and I've done this for 16 years, I have to really prep myself before reading because throughout the day, I will have moments of doubt myself, going, "Geez, am I really going to make this connection? Can I really move my mind in the proper direction to make it work?" So now there are some mediums, they have no problem at all. They just, it's kind of like second hat and they just flip over and they're on. I'm
Right.
not one of those mediums. I really have to work at it.
Can I
Um,
just ask you how you turn it on? I mean, it might be too big of a question to answer, but there's got to be some kind of a practice that you put in place of something.
honestly, I have an affirmation prayer that I use. The way I look at it is, if, you kind of have to approach it like in a sense, an Olympic athlete. You know how it's not, like 80-90% a mental game
Yeah.
and the rest is physical.
Mm-hmm.
It, with mediumship, it's pretty much 100% mental because that's where the information is coming through, is through the mind and through the body. And so you have to get into that mental space and be open to allow that information to come in, to pop into your consciousness. And so, after you work a full day at a job and everything, it's not necessarily an easy thing to do just to sit down and flip your mind over and start bringing through spirit, at least not for me. So I have a big, long paragraph that speaks to moving awareness and being in that power, because there's a certain sense of power frequency when you're in that state. And this affirmation, I read it probably about 2 or 3 times to more or less move me in that direction. That's
Wow,
how I prepare.
that's awesome. And just for our listener too, your full-time job, you have a full-time job aside from
Correct.
being a paranormal
Yes.
investigator, medium, all that,
Yes.
which is highly exciting to me that no matter who you are or what you're doing, you can follow your interests and still, make it all work, follow your passions and
Yeah.
stuff. I still work with the race car teams and own a small business, and here I am in my PJs in my bedroom, in the evening interviewing you, and this is my passion too, right? So we can do it all. My fire is lit. So
Yeah.
any closing words before we wrap up the interview? Anything coming to mind you want to share with, I don't know, our listener, or anything at all?
Yeah, just that no matter what we've been told throughout our lives or what we might believe, we actually were born perfect. And we were born perfect because we have every possibility available to us and the ability to exercise the will to go and experience those possibilities. It's just sometimes a little hard depending on the mental frameworks that we've created. But that doesn't negate the fact that those possibilities are there. And if we choose to, we can experience them. And we do go beyond time and space, and we do not die.
I want to give you a big hug. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you so much. And to our listener, thank you so much for being here episode after episode, or even if this is your first episode. I hope you enjoyed it. But Jeffrey, really honest, it was just a pleasure. I'm really great, and I really look forward to a friendship with you, and
Absolutely.
staying in touch when I start doing bigger seminars and things like that. We can be on stage together
I would
somewhere.
absolutely
Yeah,
love that.
yeah,
That would
yeah.
be that'd be a kick in the pants.
Yeah, good, because we'll have fun, and yeah, and you're really, really easy to listen to. So
Thank
again,
you.
I want to remind our listeners you can always go to we don't die radio.com where you can find out more about Jeffrey Marks, and also his website is spiritualexploration.com. And on his episode of this show right now, I have his a link to his website, a picture of him, and a link to his books. And be sure to get your free thank you gift for listening to the show today on we don't die radio.com. This is Sandra Champlain. I do believe with all my heart that life is an education for the soul, and that your life here on earth is important. And in the words of Jeffrey Marks, be curious enough to experiment. I mean, go for it. Why not? Have fun and really get that you're so much more than who you may think